Griffin North didn't plan on taking the scenic route home, but the detour ended up changing everything. The sun had just dipped past the horizon as his matte black Aston Martin curved through the winding backroads outside Charleston. He was supposed to be in Manhattan by morning, but the board meeting could wait. He needed air, space, time to think. Running a multimillion-dollar development firm meant his schedule was usually packed to the second. Tonight, though, he let himself breathe. That's when he saw her. A dusty blue sedan sat on the shoulder, hood popped, hazard lights blinking weakly. A woman paced beside it, waving a phone uselessly in the air, clearly searching for signal. She wore jeans and a tank top, her hair in a messy braid falling over one shoulder. She looked frustrated, stranded, and completely alone. Griffin slowed down. He didn't usually do this. He wasn't the pull over and help type, especially not in the middle of nowhere at night, but something about her made him stop. He rolled down his window. "You good?" The woman turned, startled. Her eyes were guarded but not afraid. "Not really. My car died and I have no signal, so unless you've got a magic wand or jumper cables, I'm stuck." Griffin gave her a quick once-over, not in a creepy way, just making sure she wasn't hurt. "I don't have a wand," he said, stepping out, "but I do have a battery pack in the trunk." She crossed her arms as he popped the back of his car. "You don't look like the kind of guy who carries around jumper cables." Griffin raised a brow. "And what kind of guy is that?" She gave him a sideways glance. "Definitely not the type who drives that thing and wears a watch that probably costs more than my car," he grinned. "You're not wrong." He connected the jump starter to her battery. "Try it now." She slid into the driver's seat, turned the key, and nothing, just a click. Griffin frowned. "Battery's not your only problem, might be the alternator," she groaned. "Perfect. Well, thanks for trying. I can give you a ride," he offered. "Where were you headed?" She hesitated, clearly weighing her options. "Lakefield. It's about 20 minutes east." "I know it," he said. "I can get you there." She eyed him cautiously. "I'm not usually the kind of person who gets into strange cars with rich guys." "Well," Griffin said, walking to the passenger side and opening the door, "maybe I'm not that strange." She stared at him, then finally let out a breath and slid in. "Okay. But if you turn out to be a serial killer, I swear I'll steal your car and run you over," he laughed. Julie noted. They drove in silence for a minute before he asked, "What's your name?" "Lena," she said. "Lena Kingsley, Griffin North." She glanced at him. "Right. That sounds made up." "It's not, I promise." She looked back out the window. "Well, thanks for stopping. Most people didn't. You were out here for a while, over an hour, a few cars passed, no one even slowed down." Griffin tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "That's messed up." "Welcome to Backroads, South Carolina." They pulled into Lakefield, a small town with one traffic light and a diner that still had its neon sign buzzing. Griffin parked in front of a modest house with a porch swing and chipped paint. Lena pointed to it. "This is me." Before she could get out, he said, "Let me make sure you get inside okay." She paused, then nodded. He walked her to the door. She unlocked it, glanced over her shoulder. "Thanks again for stopping and not being a serial killer." Griffin smiled. "Anytime." She hesitated, then said, "You didn't have to do that. Most guys in your bracket don't even notice people like me." His jaw tightened. "Well, maybe I'm not most guys." She gave him a look, like she was trying to figure him out. "Maybe you're not." He turned to leave, but something made him stop. "Do you want me to call a tow truck for the car? I know a guy." She blinked. "You know a guy all the way out here?" "I know a lot of people," he said simply. "Let me help." After a beat, Lena nodded. "Okay." He pulled out his phone and made the call. Once it was handled, he looked at her again. "They'll pick it up tonight. You'll get a call in the morning. You didn't have to go that far." "I wanted to," he said. Something passed between them. A flicker, a pull. "Good night, Lena." "Good night, Griffin." He walked back to his car, but as he slid into the seat, he found himself glancing back. She was still standing on the porch, watching him. And for the first time in a long time, Griffin didn't want to drive away. The next morning, Lena was in her tiny kitchen, pouring coffee when there was a knock at the door. She opened it and nearly dropped the mug. Griffin stood there, holding a bag. "You said your car's toast, so I figured you might need a ride to work." She blinked. "How did you know I work today?" "I didn't. I just guessed." "And if I didn't?" I'd have taken you out for breakfast anyway. She folded her arms. You're very persistent. I'm also very charming. She stared at him, a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. Let me grab my bag. They ended up at a sleek cafe 2 towns over. He ordered without checking the prices. She noticed. You really are rich, huh? He shrugged. I do okay, like. You just bought me a croissant that costs $12. He smiled. It's a good croissant. As they ate, she asked, so what do you actually do? Griffin leaned back. Real estate development, commercial and residential, hotels, resorts, high-rises. I own Northstone properties. Her eyes widened. Wait, that's you, you're Northstone. Guilty. Lena stared. You're on the cover of that business magazine my boss reads. I thought you looked familiar. You didn't say anything last night. I didn't recognize you last night. You looked like a guy who just wanted to help. He softened. That's all I was. She looked at him for a long moment. Why are you here, Griffin? He didn't blink. Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since you got out of my car. Lena's breath caught. And I don't want to walk away from whatever this is, he said quietly, their eyes locked. And just like that, something began. Lena sat in the passenger seat of Griffin's car, staring out the window as the landscape blurred by rows of long-forgotten cotton fields and sagging barns giving way to glossy storefronts and fresh pavement. It was strange how quickly the world changed when you had the means to move through it. She glanced sideways. He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting casually on the gearshift. There was a quiet intensity about him, like he was always several thoughts deep, even in silence. You didn't have to come back today, Lena said suddenly. I know, Griffin replied without looking at her, but I wanted to. You're not exactly blending in out here. Is that your way of saying I'm a little too polished for Lakefield? More like too polished for anyone who doesn't own a yacht, he chuckled. I don't own a yacht, she raised an eyebrow, but you could. He didn't answer that. Instead, he pulled into a narrow gravel lot in front of a brick building with faded lettering on the window, Kingsley's Books and Things. You work here? He asked, surprised. She nodded. It was my dad's. I've been running it since he passed. Griffin shut off the engine and turned toward her. I didn't expect that. Why, because I'm not in some corner office with a skyline view? No, he said, studying her, because it's rare. People don't usually stay rooted to something like this anymore. Lena opened the door and stepped out. It's not about staying rooted, it's about keeping something alive. Inside, the shop smelled of old paper and lemon oil. The floor creaked with every step, and the back wall was covered in Polaroids of customers past, most of them smiling beside a man with Lena's eyes and a mischievous grin. Griffin paused in front of the photos. Your father, she gave a short nod. He always said books were the only real escape that didn't ask anything in return. Griffin's gaze lingered on a photo of Lena as a child, sitting on the counter with her legs swinging, her father behind her holding a worn copy of Treasure Island. What about you? She asked, walking toward the register. What did your father leave you? He looked away from the wall. Control of everything, her eyes narrowed. That doesn't sound like a gift. It wasn't. He stepped farther inside, his voice low. My father's legacy wasn't built on heart, it was built on acquisition. He passed me the keys and expected me to turn the same gears, build bigger, push harder, feel nothing. Lena leaned against the counter. And did you? For a while, he said. Until I realized I was building towers no one wanted to live in, she tilted her head. So what changed? He looked up at her. I pulled over on the side of the road. The bell over the door jingled, interrupting the moment. An older woman entered with a basket of preserves and a bright blue scarf wrapped around her neck. Lena, I've brought those fig jams for your shelfo. She stopped short, eyes darting to Griffin. Company, Lena took the basket. Mrs. Bell, this is Griffin. Griffin, this is Mrs. Bell. She's basically the mayor of the block. Griffin offered his hand. Pleasure. Mrs. Bell accepted it with a scrutinizing glance. Well, don't see many men like you around here. Is that a compliment or a warning? She gave a sharp laugh. Depends on what your intentions are. Lena cleared her throat. Mrs. Bell, I'm just saying, dear. She turned back to Griffin. Be kind to her. She's been through enough. With that, she shuffled toward the back, leaving a trail of lavender perfume in her wake. Griffin looked at Lena. She's not subtle. She doesn't need to be. He leaned against a shelf. What did she mean, been through enough? Lena hesitated, fingers tracing the edge of the jam jar in her hand. A year ago, I was supposed to leave this town, had a scholarship to a publishing program in Chicago. Then Dad collapsed behind that counter. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. Griffin's expression shifted. You stayed for him. There wasn't anyone else, she said quietly. He was the only family I had, and this store, it's all I had left of him. Griffin didn't speak for a moment. Then he stepped closer. You gave up your future for a memory. I didn't give it up, she said, lifting her gaze. I traded it for something that mattered more. He nodded slowly, as if absorbing the weight of her words. That's not something many people would do. I'm not most people. No, he said. You're not. She turned away, uncomfortable with how those words settled over her. You don't have to keep coming here, Griffin. I know. This town isn't built for someone like you. It's slow and small, and maybe that's exactly what I need. She looked at him, searching for a crack in the performance, a glimpse of the man behind the tailored suits and expensive car. But all she saw was sincerity. He walked toward the door. I'll be back tomorrow, she frowned. Why? Because I want to see what kind of woman trades a city full of lights for a single porch bulb. He stepped outside, leaving the scent of cedar cologne in his wake. Lena stood behind the counter as the bell jingled again. This time, it sounded different. Like the start of something she hadn't planned for and couldn't stop if she tried. The rain started just after sunset, soft at first, then heavier, rolling across the tin awning of the bookstore like distant applause. Lena locked up early, the streets of Lakefield already empty, the sky bruised with storm clouds. She stepped back inside to grab her umbrella, only to find Griffin leaning against the checkout counter, flipping through the first edition of the bell jar she kept behind glass. I thought you left hours ago, she said, startled. I circled back, he replied, placing the book down carefully. Didn't feel right leaving without saying goodnight. You walked in without knocking. The door was still open. She narrowed her eyes. That's not really the point. He glanced out the front window. It's pouring. I figured you'd need a ride. She grabbed her umbrella anyway. I have legs, I'm aware. But I also have a car that doesn't leak. She looked at him, the way his shirt sleeves were rolled neatly, exposing the watch she hadn't asked about but now couldn't ignore. You're not used to being told no, are you? He leaned on the counter again, but not casually this time. There was a question in his eyes. Only when it matters. She tightened her grip on the umbrella handle. So why does this matter? Because I haven't wanted anything real in a long time. And then I met you. Lena blinked, caught off guard by the rawness in his voice. You don't even know me. I know you stayed when it would have been easier to run. I know you look at this town like it's both a promise and a prison. And I know you haven't had someone show up for you in a while. She stepped toward the door. You think you can just drop into someone's life and fix it with pretty words and a luxury sedan. No, he said, moving to block her path. I think I can stop pretending that I don't care about someone who's started to matter more than anything I've built. She looked up at him, chest rising and falling faster than she wanted to admit. You're moving too fast. I've wasted too much time. That's not something I'm willing to do anymore. The thunder cracked overhead. The lights in the store flickered. Lena exhaled. You don't get to come in here and shake everything loose. I've spent years building a world I can live with. And has it made you happy? She hesitated. That's what I thought, he said gently. She pushed past him, stepping onto the porch. The rain soaked her shoulders instantly. She didn't open the umbrella. He followed her, jacket already beading with water. You don't understand what it's like to have no safety net, Griffin. I didn't always have one either. She turned to him. That's hard to believe. He stepped closer, voice low. My mother left when I was 9. My father replaced her with quarterly profits and a rotating list of assistants. I learned early that people leave, Lena, and I decided I'd build a life where I didn't need anyone. And now I realize I don't want that life anymore. She stared at him, water dripping from her brow. What do you expect from me? Nothing you're not ready to give. Just don't shut the door before you know what's on the other side. She didn't respond, not with words. Instead, she walked down the steps and toward his car without another glance back. He followed. Inside, the heat kicked on immediately. The silence between them was different than before, charged, taut, waiting. She broke it. I don't want to be someone you chase because she's different. You're not different, he said. You're real. That's what makes this impossible to ignore. She looked down at her hands. I'm not built for your world. Then I'll build one we can both stand in. She laughed, but it wasn't unkind. You talk about rebuilding like it's easy. It's not, but it's worth it. They sat there, the rain muffling the rest of the world. After a moment, she whispered, Tomorrow's the anniversary. He looked over. Of what? My dad's passing. He didn't speak, just reached over and took her hand. She didn't pull away. The next morning they were parked outside the cemetery gates before the sun had risen. Lena stepped out first, clutching a small bouquet of hydrangeas. Griffin didn't follow her through the wrought iron gate. He waited by the car, giving her space. She returned 15 minutes later, eyes red but steady. Thank you, she said. He opened the door for her. Always. They drove back to town in silence. This time it wasn't awkward. It felt like something unspoken had settled between them, a new understanding, fragile but undeniable. When they pulled up outside the bookstore, she turned to him. I have to open in an hour, I figured, but I close at 5. His lips parted slightly. Are you asking me to come back? I'm saying I won't stop you, he nodded once. Then I'll be here. She got out, walked up the steps, and paused before unlocking the door. Griffin? Yeah, I don't trust easily. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me try. She left the door open behind her, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was walking into something alone. The invitation arrived on Lena's doorstep in a navy envelope with her name written in gold ink, no return address, no sender's name. Just a folded card inside with one sentence in Griffin's handwriting. Come find out what I've been building. She turned it over twice, heart thudding. Her fingers hovered over the edge before slipping the card back into the envelope. She didn't need to guess where it led. Griffin had disappeared for 3 days without a word, not a visit, not a call, and now this. She didn't tell anyone where she was going, just locked the store early and drove, guided by the hand-drawn map that had been tucked beneath the note. The roads shifted from paved to gravel, trees crowding the edges until the world narrowed into silence. Then she saw it. A wrought iron gate stood open at the end of a long drive, flanked by tall hedges and stone columns. Beyond it, a stretch of manicured land rose into view, and at the center, perched like something from a dream, was a glass-walled structure with warm light glowing from within. Not a mansion. Not a palace. Something else entirely. She parked hesitantly. The door was already open. Inside, the space unfolded into a modern atrium, wide beams of polished wood overhead, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the lake behind it. But what stopped her was the centerpiece. A massive open-floor library, rows of bookshelves in rich mahogany, and a reading nook built into the bay window overlooking the water. A fireplace crackled quietly in the corner. Griffin stood by one of the shelves, sleeves rolled up, a book in his hand. You came, he said without turning. This is yours. Lena stepped in slowly, overwhelmed. It's ours, he said, if you'll have it. She stared at him, not understanding. I bought the land last year, he explained. Didn't know what to do with it. It felt too quiet, but then I met you. And I knew exactly what it needed to become. She walked farther in. You built a library. I built a retreat for stories. A sanctuary. A place for readers and writers and people who lost something they loved and didn't know where to put the grief. She turned sharply toward him. You remembered what I said about the store, my dad. I remembered everything. He walked to a nearby table and picked up a leather-bound folder. There's more. I've set up a literary grant in your father's name. To support independent bookstores and literacy programs in small towns like this one. Lena froze. Why would you do all this? Griffin stepped closer. Because I've spent years building towers I didn't believe in, but this is the first thing I've ever built that feels like home. Her throat tightened. This is too much. No, he said softly. It's exactly right. She walked to the bay window, fingers brushing the bookshelves as she passed. You planned this while you were gone, every detail. I had my team working around the clock. It's not finished yet, but I wanted you to see it first. She turned around, eyes full of doubt and awe. Griffin, I don't know how to belong in a world like this. I don't know how to be with someone who builds libraries like their love letters. Then let me show you, he said. Let me show you what it looks like when someone chooses you without hesitation. She swallowed hard. I'm scared. So am I, he admitted. But I'd rather be terrified with you than secure without you. She walked toward him slowly, heart pounding. And what happens if I say yes? Then I stop building things for the world, he said, and start building them for us. Lena reached up, her hand brushing his cheek. This is the craziest thing anyone's ever done for me. It's the first thing that's ever felt like it mattered, Griffin said, voice thick with emotion. You made me want more than just success. You made me want a life. She kissed him. It wasn't careful. It wasn't soft. It was years of heartbreak and hope and everything unsaid crashing into a single moment. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "You didn't just pull over that night. You changed the direction of everything." He smiled, truly smiled for the first time in a very long time. And I'd do it again. 1,000 times. Later that evening, the sky split open with stars. Griffin led her outside, down a stone path lined with lanterns to a small dock that stretched out over the water. A bottle of champagne waited on a tray beside 2 glasses. He didn't say anything at first. Just handed her a glass, raised his own, and looked out over the lake. I never expected to find you, he said. But now that I have, I'm not letting go. Lena leaned her head against his shoulder. You don't need to promise me forever. I'm not, he said. I'm promising you every day I have. She closed her eyes, letting the piece of that settle into her bones. And for the first time since her father died, she felt like something had come full circle. Like the pain had made space for something just as big, just as real, love. Not the kind in books, not the kind she shelved and sold to others, but the kind that stopped on a backroad, got its shoes muddy, and changed everything it touched. Griffin turned to her, sliding an arm around her waist. Stay with me. Lena didn't need time to think. I already am. The grand opening of the lakefront retreat arrived on a dusky Saturday, ushered in by the scent of pine, fresh paint, and the low hum of anticipation. Dozens of guests from town and beyond gathered across the stone terrace, where fairy lights stretched between trees and string quartets played beneath the wide southern sky. Lena stood inside the library's main hall, watching the space come alive, books being browsed, tea being poured, and laughter rising from the reading nooks she had helped design. Griffin approached quietly, adjusting his cufflink with one hand, the other offering her a champagne flute. You did this, she said softly, accepting the glass. We did this, he corrected. Together. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither spoke. The last few weeks had been a blur of planning, decisions, and long nights spent sketching layouts on napkins and arguing over seating fabrics. But tonight it was done, and it was perfect. Lena scanned the room. I can't believe people actually came, he smiled. You built something they wanted to be part of. That's rare. She took a slow sip, then nodded toward a corner where a group of middle school students huddled around a stack of graphic novels, giggling. That's my favorite part. Griffin leaned in slightly. Mine's watching you realize you belong in this world. Lena looked at him, her voice quieter. It still feels like someone else's life sometimes. Then we'll keep building it until it feels like yours. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stepped back and looked around, taking in every corner of the transformed space, the shelves now full, the sunlight pouring through the windows, the woman reading aloud to a circle of children on the floor. Her father would have loved this, not for its grandeur, but for its heart. Griffin moved beside her again. There's something else I want to show you. She followed him through a side hallway that hadn't been opened to the public yet. He opened a narrow door leading into a private study. Inside was a simple wooden desk, a drafting table, and a wall of books, all first editions. But what caught her breath was the framed photograph on the wall, her father standing in front of the old bookstore holding a copy of Great Expectations, wearing his wide, familiar grin. Lena stepped closer, her hand lifting instinctively toward the frame. Where did you get this? She whispered. Griffin spoke softly. I tracked down an old local photographer. He had a stack of candid shots from your dad's last year. Said your father never got around to printing them. Her eyes didn't leave the photo. He looks so alive. He is in here in all of this. She turned to him slowly, emotion flickering across her face. No one's ever done anything like this for me. Griffin walked to the drafting table and pulled open a drawer. Inside was a rolled-up architectural plan. He unfurled it on the table, revealing a design for a new wing one with her name etched into the corner. This will be a writer's retreat, he said. Residency programs, mentorships, creative workshops, all under your direction. Her throat tightened. You're giving me this. I'm giving you everything I was saving for someone who'd make it matter. She swallowed hard, her voice cracking. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to. His eyes searched hers. You've already given me something I never knew I needed, a life that's not just about building things but about belonging somewhere. She stepped into his arms without hesitation, her voice muffled against his chest. I'm not afraid anymore. Good, he said, holding her close, because I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Later that night, the guests trickled out beneath a sky dusted in stars. The candles burned low, and the music faded until only the sound of crickets remained. Lena stood barefoot on the dock, her heels discarded beside her, the hem of her dress swaying in the breeze. Griffin joined her, his jacket draped over his shoulder, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. She took the one he offered. You remembered I don't drink champagne twice, he nodded. I remember everything. They sat side by side, legs dangling over the edge of the dock, silence stretching comfortably between them. I used to think love was something that happened to other people, she said. People who didn't have to fight so hard just to stay afloat. I used to think it was a distraction, he replied, something that would make me lose focus, dull my edge, and now, he looked at her. Now I think it's the only thing that makes any of it worth it. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I didn't think I'd get a second chance at something good. You didn't, he said gently. You got the first chance you actually deserved. In the months that followed, the retreat became more than a building, it became a sanctuary. Writers came from across the country. Local schools bussed in students for storytelling workshops. The shelves never stayed full for long, and neither did the reading chairs. Lena curated every program, every visiting guest, every story that passed through their doors. Griffin split his time between the retreat and his firm's newly opened Charleston office. But on weekends, he was always home planting trees along the lake trail, hosting poetry nights in the atrium, or simply sitting beside Lena as she scribbled notes for the next program over morning oatmeal. One spring morning, as the tulips bloomed along the entry path and birdsong filtered through the open windows, Griffin found her in the study, flipping through the pages of a worn notebook. He leaned against the doorframe. You're up early, she looked up. Couldn't sleep. Too many ideas. He walked to her and placed a small velvet box on the desk. She stared at it. What's this? Something I've been carrying for a while, he said, waiting for the right time. Her fingers hesitated before opening it. Inside was a simple, elegant ring, no flash, just substance. Like everything he'd ever given her. I don't want to build anything else unless it's with you, he said. So marry me, not tomorrow, not someday, now. She reached for him without another word, pulling him close, tears gathering but not falling. Yes, she whispered. Yes, always. They were married beneath the willow trees by the lake, with the townspeople gathered on picnic blankets and the retreat's youngest visitors tossing petals from woven baskets. There were no chandeliers, no gilded halls, just laughter, sunlight, and the quiet certainty of something real. And when they danced across the terrace that night, surrounded by the people who'd watched them fall in love from the ground up, Lena finally understood what it meant to be chosen not by chance, but with intention. She had built a life on grief and resilience. Griffin had built one on ambition and silence. Together, they built something that would never need rebuilding again.